Live? We are live. Wow, I haven't done a live stream since like February of like, what was that, 6-7 months ago? It's been a while. But either way, welcome everybody. Welcome to the stream. Today we're going to be taking a look at the iPhone 15, iPhone 15 Pro, and obviously the iPhone 15 Plus. I figured the best thing to do with this is to basically just have an unboxing. I know a lot of people don't care about the colors, but some of you guys actually do care about the colors, about what your iPhone colors look like. But at the end of the day, I know most of you, like 90% of you, are probably just gonna like slap a case on it and call it a day. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the chat. We are just taking a look at the iPhone 15, 15 Plus, and 15 Pro. A bunch of different colors on the table. Now, I've already cheated. Okay, I've already cheated and unboxed the titanium model of the iPhone 15 Pro Max yesterday, just because I wanted to get things going, you know, like I wanted to start my review process. It's one of the devices that I'm actually going to be reviewing first. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, you can ask me 1,000 times what is the best iPhone color, but like that's a question that's really subjective. Like everyone is gonna feel different about the color they're looking at, about the color they want. So it's really gonna come down to your own personal preferences. Now I'm gonna start off with the iPhone 15. This is the blue model, and this is your regular iPhone 15. So a lot of the hardware that's inside of here has been transferred down from the regular iPhone 14 Pro last year. It's kind of a remixed phone in a lot of ways, but I think like the big deal this year with the 15 is you get that 48 megapixel camera, plus you have dynamic island if that's really important to you. Now these unboxings are nothing fancy anymore. Like it's basically just the actual phone and a cable. There's no more charging brick, obviously. That's been gone for the past few years. But the one thing they did do this year was include a cable that has a nice texture to it. It's more of a weave rather than like your typical cable. And the beauty about this cable, and we've seen this on the MacBook Air, for example, is that it's a lot harder to tangle, okay? Like this cable can tango, but it also won't tangle. Okay, that was so cheesy. That was like the worst dad joke in the world. Obviously, it's USB Type-C. We know this already. Of course, you get your typical Apple stickers. Yes, there is a SIM tool, because I'm in Canada. If you're not in the United States, most other places around the world are still using a SIM card, so they do include a SIM tool so that you can place your SIM card inside of the device. Now, the iPhone 15 colors in general are a lot more muted compared to previous years. They don't like really jump out of you. And quite frankly, I like the muted look. I think it looks very classy. On top of that, because it's muted, they went with a frosted back. So I don't know, this is the old one. This is the Pro Max, for example. Where's the regular iPhone 13? So this is the iPhone 13 from last year. You can see how glossy it is, right? Compared to the new frosted look. The frosted look just, I don't know, it just looks cleaner. And obviously, as you can see here with the regular 13, you just see a lot of fingerprints all over it. With this guy, that's not happening anymore. Those days are done. And the beauty about this is that when you hold the phone, because the edges have been rounded off, it just feels more comfortable in the hand. I know these are little things, but like, trust me, when you're holding both of these phones, you can automatically tell how much more comfortable the iPhone 13 is to actually hold. Now I'm gonna put this aside. We're gonna unbox the Plus next, the iPhone 15 Plus. This is obviously the big version of the regular iPhone 15. The difference is you're pretty much buying the Plus version for a bigger display and obviously more battery life. Everything else is pretty much identical in terms of the camera, the way the phone works, dynamic island. It's all the same compared to the regular iPhone 15. So this is mint green. It's actually very minty, okay? It's almost like, I wouldn't say hospital green, but it's kind of like a, I don't know. I actually like this green. Like I've seen some really bad green jobs on iPhones. This one is a little better. So just like the other one, you get that fancy cable with USB Type-C. This is not a cable that can support USB 3 speeds. If you want to support USB 3 speeds on the Pro models, you definitely have to buy a different cable for your phone. Now, granted, this is not like Apple being Apple. A lot of companies do this, unfortunately. So if you want the more expensive cable, you got to go out and buy it. The next one is the iPhone 15 Pro. Actually, I should take this peel off first. There you go. That's the green model. I'm going to place down beside the blue model. So you can see very muted, a little darker inside of the camera lens, gives it a little bit more punch, but overall, you know, I think I like it. I just like this frosted look. And I'm telling you, if you have a chance, if you have an iPhone 14, or sorry, 13 rather, go into the store and feel the phones out. Like, you're gonna feel the difference. Like, instead of having that like chiseled side, this is just rounded off and it's just more comfortable to hold. So I'm gonna place these down beside each other so that you guys can see the difference. And then this is the titanium model, the Pro Max. I've already unboxed this yesterday, so you can kind of see how it looks. Honestly, everyone's usually really excited about like the darker colors like graphite and space gray, but I really think the natural titanium is my favorite color this year. Now, the way they did this was they just brushed titanium on the outsides. Right underneath the titanium itself, it's still a aluminum frame. And the benefit to this is that it does reduce the weight, okay? It's not like significantly lighter to the point where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe how light this phone is now. But you do feel it. And for someone who used the 14 Pro Max all of last year, you can definitely tell the difference. And just like the regular iPhone 15, it doesn't have those chiseled edges on the side of the phone. So again, when you're holding it, it feels more comfortable. Now, look, the display is still the same display size as last year, but they reduced the size of the bezels. I don't know if you guys can see this, but they reduced the size of the bezels a little bit, so the width of the phone is technically thinner. Harder to tell because the actual thickness of those bezels are so minute, you don't really notice it, but what you will notice is how it feels in your hand, and obviously the lightness. Like, it does make a difference, okay? So the last iPhone, which I haven't unboxed yet, is the black iPhone 15 Pro. This is the black titanium, okay? So this is the regular 15 Pro. This does not have the 5x telephoto lens. It's using the regular 3x zoom that we've seen on previous iPhones. And just like the other two models, what you get in the box is pretty much identical. Now, the cool thing is, like, when you put this off to the edge, depending on how the light reflects off it, the darkness of that black gets muted. I don't know. I think it looks great too. Like, I really do think it looks great, but I don't know. I think I'm going natural titanium this year. So again, you get that braided cable, and then of course you have your stickers with the SIM tool, especially if you're not in the United States. So I don't know. What is your favorite color, guys? I mean, I know 90% of you are probably gonna plop cases on this. Like, last year I was rocking my 14 Pro Max in a case the entire year. I probably saw the color for a total of 2 hours after getting the phone, and after that it was in a case. So it's good to see that the phone is still actually purple. And for those of you wondering how the longevity of the 14 Pro Max is living up to over a year, this is what it kind of looks like. You know, like, it's still good. You know, obviously there's a lot of fingerprints on the sides of this device, but overall it's in good shape, and I was using a very, very thin case. So this is the old purple on the 14 Pro Max. We have the natural titanium right beside the black or graphite, okay? And again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because most of you are probably putting cases on this, but for those of you who have the kahunas to rock an iPhone without a case, this is what your phone is going to actually look like. Even the 15 Pro feels a little bit lighter. Like, I'm loving the way this feels in the hand compared to the previous one. Not that I found the regular 14 Pro heavy. It never was, right? But this new 15 Pro just feels a little bit lighter, about 19 grams lighter. And again, you do feel the difference if you're holding the phone, especially for a long period of time. Okay, obviously it has USB Type-C. It's brand new to the entire lineup, so that's new there. So we're not going to go over that again. But I was playing around with the titanium model USB Type-C, like just connecting stuff to it. And like, I actually connected an external drive to it. And it was really cool to see an external drive pop up on your phone, right? Like, this is important if you're going to be like attaching external drives to your phone. If you're planning on shooting a lot of video or something, you don't want to like record it directly to your phone, especially important if you don't plan on buying the more expensive 1 terabyte model. But if I go into files, let me just make sure there's nothing for you guys. Okay, if I go into files, for example, you can see my drive right here. You see that? My passport. And if I press on it, these are all the folders inside of that drive. So right now, the drive you're looking at is basically my testing folder for laptops. So you can see all the games that are installed on it. Obviously, I can't run any of these games on the iPhone, but if you ever need to like access something off that drive, you can totally do that by just plugging it in via USB Type-C, copying it onto your iPhone, and then you have the ability to actually use it. Now, one thing people need to realize is that the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro only, not the previous iPhones, have the ability to reverse charge your AirPods, or quite frankly, any device that allows it to charge. So like if I hook up other headphones to this iPhone is actually going to charge it. And if you have the Lightning version of the AirPods Pro, the second gen, the iPhone 15 will charge it as well, but you're gonna need a Type-C to Lightning cable. So just to prove it to you guys, I'm gonna plug in that Type-C cable again. I'm gonna plug it into the Type-C AirPods, and then you should see the little light pop up. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll bring it a little bit closer to the camera, but the light, it's getting, there it is. A little washed out from the actual light because it's so bright, but you can see that it's finally charging. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, like, I don't know, because it's USB Type-C, you just have like so many options to connect devices to your phone, you know? And I think that's pretty cool. Now, Alex says, if the regular 15 had at least 90 hertz, it'd be a great option. Alex, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's borderline, I don't know, wrong that Apple hasn't put a high refresh rate on the regular iPhone 15. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand why they're not doing it. They want to like differentiate the lineups, and they feel like based on the data that they're receiving, most consumers probably don't care. But like at the end of the day, like every Android phone from budget to mid-range to premium has a high refresh rate. It doesn't cost a lot of money to do that. And I feel like you're right. At least 90 hertz should be on the regular iPhone 15. Okay. So one person asked, is the Pro worth it this year, especially if you're jumping from an iPhone 11? Absolutely. Like if you're coming from an iPhone 11 or earlier, the jump up is absolutely worth it. Like I feel like you're gonna feel a big difference coming from that older device. If you're coming from like a 12, maybe if your battery's still in good condition, 13 definitely not, then I'd probably maybe wait another year. Now, just to give you guys an idea of how the battery's been holding up on the Pro Max, I'm gonna show it to you. So right now, let me switch back to the different display. So right now I have about what, 53% battery life left. I took this off the charger at 6:35 a.m. this morning. That's when my alarm goes off. And right now I have 51% left. Now, if this was the previous 12 Pro Max, I'd be ending the day with like 70% left. So the battery life on the previous 14 Pro Max and this newer 15 Pro Max is obviously not as good as previous iPhones. There's just a lot more going on now. Always on displays. There's a lot more happening in the background. You got dynamic island, all that kind of stuff. The battery's just being used a lot more. And even though they did technically increase the battery size by a little bit in this one's iPhone, or this newer version of the iPhone, it's just not as good as before. But look, it's not terrible battery life by any means. Like this is still all day battery. Like it's 4 o'clock right now and I have 50% left to utilize. Like I'm obviously going to be able to use this till, I don't know, 12 or 1 a.m. in the morning before the battery gets really low. So I'm still happy with that. But then it becomes the question of, you know, is the 15 Pro worth it? Well, look, I think if battery life is so important to you, you should definitely go for the Pro Max because you're really going to feel the squeeze on the regular 15 Pro this year. There's just so much going on in the background. So yeah, like even someone like me who prefers the size of the regular 15 Pro in general, I'm making the sacrifice to go with the bigger phone just because the battery life is actually better. Okay, so Yasser says, what color do you recommend? Look, I've already gave you my option. I prefer natural titanium, but this is such a subjective thing. Like this is honestly something you shouldn't be asking other reviewers. You got to ask yourself, what color do I like the most? Because like I said earlier, most people are slapping cases on this and you're never going to see the color again until you sell or give away your iPhone. Other things I want to show you. So right now we have a battery that is completely healthy. So I'm going to take a look at my battery health. So right now I'm at 100% battery health capacity, which is fantastic. But if you take a look at my 14 Pro Max, for example, let's go to the settings here. the battery life is not as good. Like when I had my 13 Pro, actually it's not that bad. I've seen worse. Like I'm at 95%, but I remember with my 13 Pro, before the 14 Pro obviously, I ended the year with 98% capacity. Now a lot of people are reporting worse battery capacity. I know some people that are in the high 80s, which is a little weird. Like maybe they're changing the way the battery works. Maybe it's the new software features that are just sucking more battery life in the background so it can't keep consistent. There's obviously something going on there, but we'll see how the iPhone 15 Pro holds out throughout an entire year. Now, the next thing I want to do is an actual test. So I'm going to be doing a Geekbench test with the 14 Pro Max and the 15 Pro Max. And the reason why I want to do this is because this new 15 Pro Max has an updated chip, the A17 Pro. And I want to see the speed difference on hand compared to the previous model. So on the right-hand side, we are looking at the 15 Pro Max using the A17 Pro Bionic. And then on the right-hand side, we have the regular A16. Okay, so this one here, 14 Pro Max. This one over here is the 15 Pro Max, A17 Pro, A16. A16 is the same chip that's in the regular i15, so this will give you a good idea how fast this device actually is. Sorry about that, I said 15 Pro Max twice. I'm getting a titanium blue iPhone in on Friday. I'll let you know how that looks. Okay, so Etpass says he uses his iPhone 14 Pro Max without a case. I mean, this guy has big balls. What can I say? Like, you, sir, have el bolas grandes. Like, you really do. Like, I know a lot of people who just won't do it. You know, I only know a few people that are going caseless. I've tried going caseless many times. I would love to go caseless. But the problem is I am such a klutz that I guarantee I would drop the phone in the next few weeks. Hey, Matthew, the 15 Pro worth upgrading from the iPhone 11 base model? I think I just answered your question, unless someone asked the exact, so someone asked the exact same question. So yeah, if you're coming from a 15, if you want a 15 Pro and you're coming from the iPhone 11, it's definitely going to be a nice upgrade. So here's what I told the other guy, okay? iPhone 11 and earlier, instant upgrade. Like, don't even think about it. Go to your store, put down your money, buy the phone right now. It's been about 4 years. The battery on that phone is probably not nearly as good as the day you got it. You're probably starting to feel like it's slowing down a little bit. You know, your hips are not moving like they used to. So I'd probably go to the store and upgrade to one of the newer devices, whether that's last year's 14 or this year's 15 or 15 Pro Max. If you're coming from an iPhone 12, it's hit or miss. Like, it really depends on the battery. Like, the 12 and 12 Pro are still solid phones. Like, they really are. But if you're finding that the battery's starting to suffer and things are starting to slow down again, then I'd probably lean towards an upgrade. But 11 and earlier, absolutely. So one person asked me to show off the action button. I'm going to do that as soon as this test is done. The iPhone 14 Pro Max, how much does it come out in Canadian? So for the regular iPhone 15 Pro Max, I think it's around $1749 for the base model, which is now 256 gigabytes. But once you include tax and everything, it ends up being like $1,900. It's definitely not cheap. Did you ever experience heating issues with your 14 Pro Max? That's a great question. I've never had it like shut down or turn off, but there has been a couple of times where the phone does get hot. Not often, you know, like not to the point where it's like uncomfortable to touch, but I do find that iPhones tend to heat up every once in a while, but I don't think it's a major concern. Like, it's never been an issue for most people. Like, it doesn't get any hotter than other comparable smartphones or anything from the Android camp. Leo, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it, buddy. Hey, is iPhone 15 Pro a good update from a OnePlus 8? Absolutely. Okay, so we're still waiting for the test to process. Right now, it looks like they're pretty much tied neck and neck, but I'm expecting the iPhone 15 Pro Max to end first, even though technically it started a little bit later just because it has that new A17 Pro chip. The cores are pretty much identical. You're still running 2 performance cores, with the rest being efficiency cores, but obviously this got a big GPU update. Apple's really pushing a new version of their Metal infrastructure. Ray tracing is now hardware based instead of software accelerated. They're going NVIDIA on us over here. So that's going to improve actual games. Now, the thing is, how important is that to you? Like, how important is playing games on your iPhone? Like, there's a lot of games on here. Like, if you're playing a lot of Genshin or mobile related games, you're going to appreciate it. But I feel like all the AAA games that people really want to play are still like locked down to certain consoles. Like, you're never going to see Zelda on this. You're never going to see Cyberpunk on this. But the fact that Apple's pushing the hardware, there is potential to maybe one day see your phone pretty much do everything you want. Pixel 7 Pro, still definitely one of the better cameras out there. The iPhone camera is solid. Is it the best camera out there? It's definitely at the top, you know, in terms of stills. But when it comes to video, that's where I place the iPhone closer to #1 compared to most other stuff. Just because, just of all the options you get and how it works with my personal workflow. Okay, so we got the results. We're looking at a 2636 single core clock speed for the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and then we have a 2926 single core clock speed for the iPhone 15 Pro Max. We can see a nice little bump up in terms of multi-core speeds for the 15 Pro Max, and then, you know, obviously compared to the previous generation. Now, look, you want to see the difference in colors. Okay, I'm going to show you the difference in colors in a second, but I want to show you guys the action button, because I think for a lot of people there was some controversy that people were a little upset about their mute switch going away. But by default, when you load up this phone for the very first time, the mute option is still enabled. So like your phone will still mute. And look, I like the fact that we have more choices with this button, because I can really, really customize it to whatever I want. Like, if you take a lot of pictures, you can go ahead and turn the action button into your camera button. If you are someone like me and uses the flashlight a lot, you can place it as a flashlight. Like, that's what I've done. I've placed my iPhone 15 Pro Max action button to use the flashlight. So these are what all the colors look like. We're starting off with natural titanium. We have last year's iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is the purple. It's kind of hard to tell. This is the green iPhone 15 Plus, blue iPhone 15, and then we have the titanium black rather, iPhone 15 Pro. Action button on the titanium. I'm going to long press it and the flashlight should go on. I'm going to log in first. 1 second. Oops, I'm pushing the power button. I'm not even pushing the action button. Okay, so I long press the action button, and then you can see the flashlight went on. There's a little icon at the top to indicate that. And then as you can see here, the flashlight is actually on. It's a long press. It's not like instant when you press it. And I think the reason why Apple didn't make the button instant when you press it, or didn't do anything after you press it instantly, is because they wanted to avoid accidental touches. So you got to give it a little press. Let's see how long it takes. It's not a long one. It's just like, you know, you hold it for about a whole second rather than like half a second, for example. Now, the cool thing is you can even get very creative with this. Like, you don't have to use one of the presets on here. Like, you could actually, I don't know, you could actually like use a shortcut to something a little bit more creative, like maybe load up a certain application or run some sort of function that you created in Siri shortcuts. Either way, I think that's kind of cool. All right. What else do you guys need to know about this phone? Speaker quality, I've already tested this out, is identical to the previous iPhone 14 Pro Max, so there's no difference there. For those of you out there who are curious about fingerprints, yes, the new version will get fingerprints. There's nothing you can do about it, but you just don't see it as much compared to the 14 Pro Max over here. Because it's a glossier finish, they are obviously, you know, a little bit stronger than the previous ones. Okay, cameras. Yes, that's what I wanted to show you guys. Okay, so I want to clear some confusion, okay? Apple is saying that this phone, they're not saying it has 7 Pro lenses, but they're saying it's like having 7 Pro lenses. So technically there's 7 different focal lengths, I guess you could call it. But there's not 7 lenses, which they obviously didn't say, but they said it's like having 7 lenses. Now, the way this works is they use the 48 megapixel camera on the back. And then what you do is, all you do is tap the 1x once. And then as you can see here, it moves into 28 millimeters, which is a 1.2 times zoom. If I push it again, it's going to go to 28 millimeters. And if I push it one more time, 38. Wow, I'm like totally messing this up. Let's do that again. Okay, So if you want to go back to 1 times, all you have to do is long press it. Oh my God. If you want to go back to 1 times, you just go out of the camera and then it automatically resets. So now that I'm back in, 1 times is equal to 24 millimeters, which is the default for your wide lens. You tap it again. Wow, I'm like really antsy over here. It goes to 28 millimeters. And then if you tap it again, oh my God, what is happening to me today? I am like losing all function here. Okay, one more time. Ultra wide, wide, default is 24 millimeters. You can obviously change that in the settings. Tap it again, goes to 28 millimeters, which is a 1 point times crop, or 1 point times zoom rather. Tap it again, you go to 35 millimeters, which is a 1.5 times zoom. Now, the reason why this is cool is not because it's like using a new lens. There's only 3 lenses on the back of the phone. It's because it's framing your shot automatically for you. And what Apple has done on the computational side of photography is they made sure to apply some of their algorithms and deep fusion principles to each of those focal lengths, okay? So this is a little bit different than just like your standard digitally zooming in. Like you're just not gonna get the same sort of like algorithm effect, for example. I'm probably not explaining this right, but this is kind of the idea. But when you tap on 28 or then 35 or whatever you want, those principles are still being applied to those focal lengths. I hope that makes sense. And it just makes like lining up a proper shot easily. Like I prefer 35. Like when I'm taking a picture of somebody, I like 35. So that's kind of cool. Now, the other big benefit of going with the Pro Max over the Pro, well, I wouldn't say big benefit, but the benefit is the new 5 times telephoto lens, okay? This is 5 times, and it replaces the 3 times telephoto lens that you have on the regular iPhone 14 Pro. So you can get a little bit closer. Plus, because it's using a telephoto lens that can go further, the digital zoom has been increased to 25 times compared to 15 times on the iPhone 14 Pro or iPhone 14 Pro Max. So you have a lot more options to play with. And when you are on your regular 5 times, Apple calls this a 120 millimeter equivalent. Okay, so I hope that clears things up.
Sorry, could you say that again?
How dare you, Siri, interrupt me? Okay, so we got a question from Flaming Killer. On the battery settings, you can apparently limit it to 80% charge. Saw it on Twitter. That is absolutely true. Let's go into the battery settings and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So we have, where is it? Ah, whoa, almost dropped this phone on all the other phones. That would have been awful because knowing my luck, it probably would have just shattered everywhere. Okay, so we have battery health and charging. Maximum capacity, maybe under peak performance capability. Ah, here it is. Okay, so if you go to your charging optimization, so right now I have it on optimized by default, but if I press on it, there's that option to charge it to 80%. So I mean, this makes sense. Like I have a Tesla, for example. Like I only charge my Tesla to 80% unless I'm taking like a longer road trip. If I do that, then I'll go up to like 90 or 95, right? But this is using those same principles to make sure that your lithium ion battery, you know, gets its full potential and doesn't like wear down over a shorter span of time. So if you're worried about your battery degrading, my suggestion is to top it up to 80% limit and then maybe charge it when it gets around 30% and then keep it in between that. That will probably give you the best battery life overall. Or you can just not worry about this stuff and just use your phone and be a champion. Okay. A couple of other things I want to show you about the camera that I noticed when I was taking pictures this morning. Okay, so portrait mode, for example. On the portrait effect, you now have 1, 2, and 5 instead of 1, 2, and 3. So if you want to get, I don't know, more depth from a distance, like if your person's further away and you hit 5 times, you can do that now with the 15 Pro Max, whereas on the regular 14 Pro Max, it only goes up to 3 times. Same sort of scenario for cinematic mode. So cinematic mode has a 1 and 2 times option. On the 14 Pro Max, cinematic mode only has a 1 and 3 times option. So there's a little bit of variance there, okay? Someone asked if there's a mute button in the control panel. I mean, the mute button in the control panel is going just to be like your volume. Like you just tap on your volume and just scroll up and down. But I don't see an actual mute. Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong phone. Let me check the control panel. Yep, there is a mute button. Okay, so thank you for pointing that out. I didn't notice that. That's actually a great detail there. Okay, left side, iPhone 14 Pro Max. There's no mute toggle. Obviously not, because it still has the mute switch. And then on the right side is the 15 Pro Max. You can see right there, you have a mute toggle. So you can just enable that yourself if you're wearing, let's say, an Apple Watch, for example. And then you can change your action button to whatever you want. Whereas on the previous version, you obviously don't have that because the switch is dedicated to muting the phone the entire time. Charging is the same, so no difference there in terms of actual charging. Like, you're still gonna get the same charging speeds. There's no reverse wireless charging, but they do have reverse wire charging now, which I mentioned earlier in the video. So, I mean, that's pretty much it, you know? Does it do 4K 60, start, record, zoom, and switch to there? So it does do 4K 60, but if you wanna do 4K 60 ProRes RAW, you do have to attach it to, I think, an external drive. I have to test that out again. Let me check. ProRes RAW Max, and then we're gonna go to video. We're gonna see if I can do 60. Yeah, if you want to do 4K 60 ProRes RAW, you have to attach it to external storage devices. You can't do it directly on the phone, but you can film up to 4K 30 ProRes RAW directly on your device. It's only if you go 4K 60 ProRes RAW that you do need an external drive. Actually, you know what? I have an external drive right here. Let's see if it actually does it. So I'm going to connect it. I'm going to connect to the bottom of the phone right here. Okay, so now I got an external drive connected to the phone, as you can see right here. Let's see if it allows me to do 4K 60. So there you go. So I'm going to press ProRes. Boom. Max time 8 minutes. That means I just don't have enough space on this drive, but it still allows me to record ProRes RAW in log. So I don't know if you guys can notice this, but the difference in color between my desk and what you see on the screen is super flat, because right now I have it in log. So what that's gonna allow me to do in post is recover some of the highlights. It's gonna give me more dynamic range rather than allowing Apple to bake on their colors. It just gives me more flexibility in post and allows me to tune the image to the way I want to instead of allowing the phone to do it instead. So you just get a little bit more control over the finished look. But yeah, drive's connected, pretty cool. Tape this on the back and then you can go ahead and record all your RAW directly onto the drive. Okay, other questions. Yeah, I already talked about the 60 hertz, Hector. I agree, it should be at least 90 on the iPhone 15. Any other questions? I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the questions so far. So anyways, I just wanted to give you guys a first look at the iPhone 15 and the 15 Pro lineup. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions, okay? If you have any more questions, make sure to drop a comment in the comment section and I will do my best to answer as many of them in my full review. So yeah, the biggest question was, should I upgrade from an 11 Pro or 11? Yes. 12, depends on the battery. 13 or 14, probably not. I'd wait another year. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining me on another live stream. If you want to see more live streams like this, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next one.